All right, let's kick things off with a story about a guy named Lazy Somana. So, Somana owned this piece of land, but he really didn't want to put in the hard work to farm it. One day, while he was snacking on a bowl of delicious fried groundnuts, it hit him. He had what he thought was an absolutely brilliant idea. He figured, hey, if I just plant these fried groundnuts directly into the field, I can grow a whole crop of already fried groundnuts, right? Boom! He'd never have to fry them again. So he goes out, sows the seeds, and waits. And the neighboring farmers were just thrilled to see him finally doing some work. But as the days went by, all the other fields turned lush and green, and Somala's land stayed completely barren. Not a single plant popped up. Why? Well, because by frying the groundnuts, he had completely destroyed their living component. He took something living and literally cooked it into something non-living.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking this incredible journey from the absolute microscopic building blocks of life all the way up to the massive, interconnected global communities that we live in today. We are going to explore exactly what makes things alive, how we naturally structure our societies, and ultimately, why understanding this whole micro to macro chain is absolutely crucial for our own survival.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, we'll define the living world. Second, we'll look at what actually makes things alive. Third, we're zooming out to families and communities. And finally, we'll talk about the crucial need for conservation.
Starting with Section 1, defining the living world, separating the animate from the inanimate.
Now, separating what's alive from what's not sounds super simple, right? But let's actually challenge our basic assumptions for a second. If we laid out a checklist for, say, a mango, a brick, a clock, and a butterfly, how would you categorize them? I mean, obviously, a brick doesn't grow, it doesn't eat, it doesn't breathe. But what about a clock? A clock has hands that are moving continuously. A river flows. A car runs down the highway. So, what is the actual fundamental difference between a clock's hands moving and a butterfly taking flight? It all comes back to that living component we just talked about with Somana. The butterfly has a whole entire suite of biological traits, respiration, excretion, responding to its environment, that a clock simply doesn't have. Basically, movement alone does not equal life.
Which brings us to Section 2, what makes things alive? The building blocks of existence. Let's zoom way in here. Whether you're looking at a towering, giant mango tree or a tiny little butterfly, all living beings are fundamentally made up of cells, just like the plant and animal cells you see diagrammed right here. These microscopic little structures are literally the engines of life. They're what allow organisms to carry out every single function necessary to survive.
But what actually are those functions? Aside from just being made of cells, living things have to check a few core boxes. They need oxygen and food, because glucose and oxygen have to work together to create energy. They grow over time, from birth to a definitive size. They reproduce, which ensures their species keeps going, whether that's laying eggs or having live births. They also have a definitive lifespan. A cow might live 20 years, an elephant 70, a turtle can go up to 150. But honestly, my absolute favorite trait is that living beings respond to stimulus. Think about it. If a thorn pricks your foot, you feel pain. A snake will hiss to defend itself. And even plants do this. If you put a potted plant near a sunny window, it will literally bend over time and grow toward the sunlight. It's amazing.
All right, moving to Section 3, families and communities, expanding our human circle.
Let's scale things back up and see how this builds from a single living organism to the massive, intricate structures of human society. As humans, we naturally group together, and the absolute foundational unit of that grouping is the family. A family tree is really just a generational map. It shows the lineage and the relationships within that core unit. And it's within the family that we learn our values, we pick up shared habits, and most importantly, we provide love and practical help to one another.
Now, what's really fascinating is how our human environments are actively changing right in front of us. Traditionally, a lot of people lived in what we call joint families. These were large, multi-generational households, usually headed up by the elders. But today, because of huge shifts in where the jobs are, income levels, education, and just modern lifestyles in general, we're seeing this massive shift toward nuclear families. These are much smaller, typically just 2 generations, so parents and their unmarried kids. It's a really significant structural change in our social environment.
So what happens when you take a bunch of these families and put them all together? Well, you get a community. The definition we're using here is pretty key. A community is a group of families living in a specific place for a long time. But the real secret ingredient? It's the we feeling. It's this deep sense of mutual dependency.
Like, imagine a mother in a small nuclear family suddenly has an emergency and needs to rush her husband to the hospital. Who steps in to watch your kid? It's the community. It's the neighbor. That mutual I've got your back help is the lifeblood of human society.
We typically categorize these communities into three main buckets: rural, urban, and tribal. And sure, each one has its own unique lifestyle, typical jobs, and distinct challenges. But the really crucial takeaway here is this. Generally speaking, the smaller the community, the stronger that vital we feeling is. When communities explode in size and become these massive urban centers, holding on to that close-knit, mutual dependency becomes a whole lot harder.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, the need for conservation, the fragile global ecosystem.
Okay, we've gone from microscopic cells up to families and into communities. Now, let's zoom all the way out to the broader natural environment we all share. And I want to do that by looking at this wild, true historical event known as the Borneo domino effect. So, once upon a time in Borneo, they had a huge problem with too many flies. Humans decided to intervene, so they sprayed a bunch of insecticides. Great, the flies died. Problem solved? Right? Wrong. Because then the local lizards ate those poisoned dead flies. The toxins didn't kill the lizards immediately, but it slowed them down, making them super easy prey for the local cats. So the cats ate the toxic lizards, and then the cats died. With the cats basically wiped out, the rat population absolutely exploded. And because of the rats, a terrifying plague erupted, killing a lot of people. It got so bad, the government literally had to import cats from other countries just to fix the ecosystem. This is such a brilliant, if slightly terrifying, illustration that nature's interconnectedness isn't just some abstract theory. It is a very delicate matter of life and death. Disrupting the living world has severe, totally unintended consequences for our own human communities.
There's a really powerful quote from the foreword of our source material that sums this up perfectly. Obviously, we absolutely need development to secure our physical existence and provide for basic human needs. We have to build. But a pro-people developmental model cannot be at loggerheads with environmental protection. If we attain development by destroying the Earth, we're just going to be left living on a completely barren planet. We have to foster a balanced, sustainable vision where we are protecting the natural environment with the exact same fierce energy that we use to protect our own social environments.
So we started today with a single microscopic cell and expanded all the way up to global ecosystems and human societies. It's like a giant puzzle, and every single piece is connected. The living world around us really is an absolute wonder. And the one thing to remember is that if we protect nature, it will protect us right back. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If protecting nature fundamentally means protecting ourselves, what role are you going to play in your community's ecosystem today? Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.